Hey, good morning, Patriots all. Good to have you all here. It's another great day, beautiful day, except, of course, if you're in Georgia or northern Florida or South Carolina or North Carolina, because we're about to get rain. But that's okay. It's just rain. It's not strong winds, super strong winds. But here we are, back again for another great episode of Wake Up Patriots. I hope you're waking up. I know I am. I've got my coffee here. And this morning, we are joined by Chris Cordani, the ever-present Ed McMahon-esque
Heyo.
Heyo. And then also joining us this morning is Karen. Karen
Good
Turk is
morning.
here.
Good morning,
Hey,
Patriots.
Karen. The folks were looking for you yesterday, and they couldn't find you. And I figured you'd fallen down into some well somewhere, and someone had to pull you out. So I hope that's.
Yeah,
I hope
no, I
you're
went on vacation. I mean, imagine
Oh.
that, which was really, really nice. I spent some time
That's a
with my
good thing.
family and had a little time to regroup. It was nice.
Good. So I'm wearing today one of our Sea of Mud T-shirts that was sent to me. Fight for God and Country.
Love CMI.
Yeah. So he sent me this, and then Karen's going to do Jesus Calling soon, because you got to fight with Jesus. Does Jesus carry an AK or an AR? Do you know that? I mean, he's a good fighter, so I don't know what that is.
He brings out all the guns.
That's
brings
right.
out all the guns.
That's right. He's got the biggest
You
guns.
know? And you know that they say about you, they say you bring the guns too, Tony. I mean, there's a whole rumor about that in the chat, but we'll get to that later.
Sure. Yeah. So
there you go. And that iconic photo says it all. And I was thinking this morning, we were talking about Donald Trump and the attempted assassination and fight. And I've made the comparison before that this man thought those might be his last words.
Yep.
He didn't know how badly he was hit. And what an amazing last 3 words for anybody to have. And I was struggling a little bit this morning because, even kids when they're adults can drive you absolutely crazy. And I had one of my children who will remain unmentioned driving me a little bit crazy. And I opened up Jesus Calling this morning, and I want to read it to both of you because it's so essentially perfect. When things seem to be going all wrong, stop and affirm your trust in me. Calmly bring these matters to me and leave them in my capable hands. Then simply do the next thing. Stay in touch with me through thankful, trusting prayers, resting in my sovereign control. Rejoice in me, exalt in the God of your salvation. As you trust in me, I make your feet like the feet of a deer. I enable you to walk and make progress upon your high places of trouble, suffering, or responsibility. And I just thought this was so interesting because I've had deers come up, and I'm all about like the spirit animal. I've had deers come up sort of in a theme. So I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole to look out where this passage is from. I will make your feet like the feet of a deer. And it's actually Psalm 18:33. And it is, he made my feet like the feet of a deer and set me secure on the heights. How cool is that?
That's very cool. Well, no, I'm dealing with one of our animals, a cat, Mr. Buggles. He's a beautiful black cat, and he's passed. So I've got to go deal with that today. And I do believe there's spirits out there that we can. Yeah, it was very sad. I have to post a picture of Mr. Buggles. He was 18 years old, and he was just loved people, So it's always tough when that happens. So that's something that we've been dealing with. But I get exactly what you're saying about animals and things. God speaks to us through other people and other things. I do believe that. So, but speaking of us speaking to you, Patriots, we've been telling you they're not those Buggles, but they are great.
That is a classic, though. I'll give you that. Mr. Buggles named after that. A good tribute.
Yes, we should play Radio Kill the kitty cat star. So anyway, anyway, but I did want to remind the Patriots that speaking of being on your side and warning you, a guy named Paul Stone, Chris, wasn't there a guy named Paul Stone on the show talking about diversifying your portfolio before the crisis hit us Friday and Monday, right?
Well, that in fact is true, and he will be back today. At this point, when we saw the American Stock Exchange go down, I shouldn't say just the American, but all the stock exchanges in America go down. Look, we don't just talk about the Dow here. You want to get a real indication, look at Russell 2000 or S&P 500. But then you see the Nikkei going down really fast. That was their worst day since 1987, Black Monday. and the Korean stock exchange was going down. So a lot of the first worlders are headed downward, and we're going to keep watching this. Yeah, there's a little recovery yesterday in America, but that is going to happen. Now you have the
No.
Federal Reserve
Yeah.
yapping on about, we're going to lower interest rates. Well, it's been a long time coming. Thanks for that.
Yeah. So, and then on that point, I mean, Paul and Colonial Metals Group, they're the folks who have been here to help guide you guys, all of us, through this trying time. This isn't over, as Chris said. The Nikkei. I think between you and me, Chris, I think Godzilla did that. I think he stomped around Tokyo and did a few things to upset the local natives and everything. But there's no bouncing back from Godzilla. There's no bouncing back from that. It's going to take some rebuilding.
But when Mothra comes back.
We have our own version of Godzilla named Kamala Harris, right? I mean, she's kind of the Godzilla, a virtual Godzilla. She's kind of like going to eat the market by putting it in the clouds. Chris, I spent the whole day looking for my data in the clouds yesterday. I couldn't find it. I kept looking. It's like, where in the hell is it?
Stupid cloud strike. All right.
Did you see this ridiculous statement? Did either of you see this ridiculous thing that they're going to bring in the actress that played her in that Veep television series or movie that I didn't watch? They're going to bring her in as a consultant to the campaign.
Yeah.
Because she did such a good job of portraying her. Is
Louis
that the
Dreyfus.
most ridiculous thing?
Julie Dreyfus. Now, she is funny.
That's who it is.
She's funny. Yeah, she is funny. She's a funny lady, but I don't think she has any political savvy. So this is literally the blind leading the blind, which really, in a way, will bring up even more comedy gold. I think. It's like, you go do it. It's like, I don't care. But Karen, I do want to talk about this whole issue regarding Kamala, and I hear that she's going to pick her VP candidate. I think she's going to go for a backbencher. Chris, do you think that they're going to go for a backbencher?
We can't say that on the air, can we? Oh no, wait. Oh no, she's going to have somebody bland. She needs somebody who's an opposite of what she is. Somebody who actually who moderates aren't afraid of. Who moderates can say, well, let's just say when they finally 25th Amendment her in 3 or 4 months, he'll be president. That's the kind of guy they want.
No, I think she's going to get Ed Buck out of prison in California. I think he balances the ticket, so to speak. I think he's a big Democrat. Well, he was a big Democrat donor, but he got donated to the federal pen or the state pen, one of the two. But he's now.
I don't know. Maybe they'll put him on Mount Rushmore. I mean, they're going to put Biden out there. Why not?
Well, why don't they make it an all-initial ticket?
Yeah. Well, we talked yesterday about Joe Biden being on with Geronimo. Remember, there's a Geronimo thing being built. He's riding a horse. So you could put Joe Biden on the butt of the horse. I think it'd be great. Kind of the Bidenomics is all right there. The Bidenomics. They kind of come tumbling out. Well, you know what I mean?
The Democrats do have a donkey as their mascot. I mean, we all know what the other name for donkey is. So I think that sums it all up, right?
So, and I see the folks in the chat are talking about Tim Walz as a guy that maybe picked. Tim Walz is a tried and true Marxist. If you look at what he writes and what he says, that guy is like left of Mao. I mean, I'm surprised he hasn't made like the Mao jacket, the state uniform for Minnesota state employees. Oh my God, there he is.
Is he left of Mao or is he left of Kamala? I mean, if maybe left of Mao is still right of Kamala.
Kalama. I can't even talk this morning. Kamala.
I mean, maybe that's her new name, Kalama. I mean, who knows? Who knows what nationality she is? It's all a big mystery.
She's a calamity.
A calamity. It's like the colors of the rainbow. Whatever color that day she's going to be it. So, but there. So I think philosophically she'd like that guy. So, and Karen, I got to ask this question: do you really believe her campaign has said she no longer supports defunding the police? She no longer supports emptying the prisons. She no longer supports open borders because we're going to close them now. She no longer supports the ban on fracking. She no longer supports the ban on offshore drilling. Do you believe anything she's saying?
No, I know we're going to confront her past. Does she believe in any of the things that she's done previously? And don't actions speak louder than words? Again, when people show you who they are, believe them. Bottom line. And she showed us again and again. I mean, roll the tapes. I mean, they're bringing up this thing about the cloud. I'm not saying she said this yesterday, but how many stupid things can this woman possibly say? I can't even look at her. I mean, this is just ridiculous. And the fact that she was sitting in the Situation Room just infuriates me in every way as a tax-paying American citizen. This is what we call leadership. This is what the Democrats want to represent them. And, I would love to get behind, the fact that she's going to pick potentially maybe Shapiro and say, oh, they're going to pick somebody Jewish. But I don't ever think that's going to happen. And I think he'll waffle just like Kamala will. Is he pro-Israel or not? Is he someone who is going to stand behind the Jewish people that he represents? Probably not. And here we are. They'll say or do anything to gain power. That is the root of all evil. That is literally selling your soul to the devil.
We have breaking news, Karen. I hate to interrupt. Tim Walz, the communist we are literally talking about, has been picked.
Really?
Wow.
That's
wow. Not surprised.
There you go. That live on the air. They've picked the Marxist.
Yeah. Wow.
Tim Walz. So basically, it's the Stalinist ticket, Stalinist Maoist ticket running for the
that's what we need to call it, the Stalinist Maoist ticket. That's right. I wonder if they're going to have the nice Joe Stalin or Mao uniform. Joe Stalin kind of wore something like that too. He had kind of that high collared jacket. So I think Kamala would look good in that, don't you?
Yeah, well,
they had the whole speech, with Joe Biden. I mean, they showed us they were communists. I mean, none of this is a shocker.
So anyway, so Patriots, we are now break. I just saw the news alert come in. It is that guy. It is that guy right there. Wow. Man, oh man, he was a big. Did you know during the COVID lockdowns they had a system of ratting on each other? So if you were out doing anything, you could rat on your neighbor and say, hey, he's breaking the lockdown, or she's breaking the lockdown. So they're already well on the way to implementing the best policies of communist China. So that's good. It's good to know.
Well, you might want to call it her last waltz. Ooh, that's terrible.
Ooh,
last waltz.
There you go. There you go. So there
we can only be so lucky if it's her last waltz. My concern is that where do we go from here? Donald Trump said it again and again, guys. If we don't win this in 2024, our country's done. We're sunk. We're already done right now. Like, what is the alternative? I mean, this is the alternative: is utter socialism, communism, and
So I want to hit that, Karen, real quick, because now that we know Walz is there, he's there to balance the ticket. I don't know how having a more concerted Marxist is balancing anything, but okay. But one of the things that you brought up is that Kamala is like kind of the rainbow girl. Like any time of day, any weather, she's it. So I wanted to run this because, George Stephanopoulos, what's his name? Stephanopoulos?
Snuffleupagus.
I always get his name wrong because it's, so anyway, George, who's being sued by Donald Trump, by the way, for slander, was on with Byron Donald. So there's an issue called on the slur, and I want to talk to you, Karen, about the slur issue. So Chris, go ahead and run that tape real quick.
And you just repeated the slur again. If it doesn't matter, why do you all keep questioning her identity? She's always identified as a black woman. She is biracial. She has a Jamaican father and an Indian mother. She's always identified as both. Why are you questioning that?
Well, George, first of all, this is something that's actually a conversation throughout social media right now. There were a lot of people who are trying to figure this out. But again, that's a side issue, not the main issue. The main issue.
Sir, 1 second. You just did it. You just did it again.
Of the United States.
Why do you insist on questioning her racial identity?
You want me to talk?
I want you to answer my question.
George, now that you're done yelling at me, let me answer. He talked about it on the stage yesterday in Atlanta for 2 minutes? He spent more than 35, 40 minutes going after her record, talking about how radical of a senator that she was. She was the most liberal senator in the United States, in the United States Senate. That is a fact. He talked about the job that she did as vice president of the United States, a job, I will add, which has been a failure for the American people.
Yep.
I know you guys like to glom on to this that he talks about in jest or in a serious manner for about a minute or so, but what you do not cover is the litany of failures of Kamala Harris. That's what you're not covering, George.
So questioning somebody's racial identity for a couple minutes is okay?
George, I'm going to tell you again, he brought it up. AP is the one that wrote the headline when she first came in to the United States Senate. Didn't talk about her being black, talked about her being the first Indian American senator. AP brought that up. I mean, George, we could have this conversation for the entire segment, but none of this matters to the American people.
That's the truth. None of it really.
First off, I want to. So I'm surprised that Stephanopoulos didn't call him boy. Boy, why aren't you listening to me? Because I think it was that level of disrespect. I mean, are you kidding me? Yeah.
Absolutely. Are you kidding me? And it's no surprise. And I think, Byron handled that really well. And it's just this, again, if they show you who they are, believe them. Remember, Joe Biden said, you ain't black. Okay, well, I guess Byron Donalds isn't black either, because the fact that George Stephanopoulos was willing to respect, Kamala Harris, but not respect Byron Daniels is clearly definitive of how the left plays. There's no way around it. And I would like to point out, because the left loves Google, I went ahead earlier when I knew we were going to be talking about this, and I looked up Google and I put in the search bar definition of black. So I would like to read this to everyone, because again, I just bring in facts here. Okay. Yeah. Number one is the darkest color owning the absence of light. Okay, black, like the color black. We understand what that means. I'm going to go down to number two. Number two is belonging to or denoting a human group having dark colored skin, which it does have, but then it goes on to say, especially of sub-Saharan African ancestry. Don't think she has any of that.
No.
And then it says, as in an example, the entire cast is black, which goes back to, I thought it was so interesting that the word caste was there.
Yeah.
Because I thought earlier about this whole Veep thing, and then bringing in Julia, this actress, to go ahead and give her more acting lessons so she can pretend like she's somebody she's not, or that she's somebody new. Own whatever you identify as, but you can't waffle on that. That's not something that's mutable, just like you can't change your biological gender that you're born with, but they've thrown that out the window. The whole thing's ridiculous. The definition's right here. So you know what? Maybe they should have Google change that, since they can get them to change every other algorithm.
Well, that's the thing. And I think look, I have friends who are of Dominican Republic heritage. They're as dark as Kamala, and they basically identify as Latin. If you don't want to say Dominican Republican, which is fine, they identify as a Latino, and they've never once
South American countries like that, Caribbean islands.
They never once said, "Oh, I'm black." It's like, you're not, and that's like, it's insane, because this is all about pandering to the idea that somehow you can. And there's the other thing, and Karen, I'm sure you probably feel the same way I do. Boy, the Olympics, I would have never thought I'd see the day where the Olympics now has admitted that the two winners of the women's boxing both have male chromosomes. It's like, come on.
It's absolutely just, I can't believe, I've actually watched bits and pieces of it, only because it's something that's so historic. It only comes around every 4 years. I know. And, there have been bits and pieces where I've picked up, and I've seen a couple of things. I saw some of the gymnastics, whatever. It's something that we used to look forward to. I remember what a big deal it was when I was a child. Certainly that's all out the window. And then you look at the ridiculous opening ceremony, which was just absolutely, again, another hint. Who are we? Well, we're on the border of being, satanic worshipers. We certainly don't believe in your culture or your God or your religion. And we don't respect you, and we don't respect the world as it is. We want to change it. And they are succeeding in changing the world. They're succeeding every single time that they let some transgender athlete compete against a real biological woman. And it's all because they want to erase women from society. They actually are the ones that are anti-feminist. It's absolutely unbelievable. And here we are. And, the fact that we could even have a woman that's being assaulted by a man. Can you imagine that we're even having this conversation, that assault on a woman is okay because you're saying what? You weren't born a man? Like, this is ridiculous. Just at the facts that I just presented.
Yeah, I know.
It is absolutely an embarrassment.
So I got to run off, but you guys can pick up with Jerry right now. I have to go do a thing with Newsmax, but I'll be back shortly. Right, Chris? You guys have got it. Karen, Chris?
We have it. And Karen, one note on this before we pull Jerry, and I actually
Yeah.
watched that press conference yesterday morning with the leaders of the IBA, the International Boxing Association, and the European Boxing Confederation, or it's too many of those things. The point is, that even both of them were saying we did extensive tests, the biological tests of all these contestants. We had to disqualify them because they had XY chromosomes. We can't have these biological males beating up on women. That's what they said. That safety was important. And I know the one guy, the president of the EC, the Confederation, European Boxing Confederation, had a little trouble with the English, but he was saying women should be protected. Women's sports should be for women only. That's important. Next,
it's common sense.
the BBC walks out of the whole thing later on. It walks out of the press conference because they're all pissy about it. Can I say that word, or should I say tinkly?
I think you say pissy. I think that's okay. I said it too, so now we both said it.
There we go. Morning, Dr. Corsi.
Morning.
Aaron today. Tony will join us back, and he's on Newsmax right now. So,
well, Karen, nice to meet you. The only problem,
morning, Dr. Corsi.
The only problem with the discussion is we don't know what a woman is.
Right.
So we can have only women are going to be protected, but what's a woman?
But if according to the IOC, this is where it's going. If it's on your passport that you're a woman, you are in fact a woman. Biology be damned.
That's right. So all this about chromosome doesn't make any difference if we're into identity politics, because they're not going to care about chromosomes. They're going to say chromosomes don't mean anything. Now, chromosomes are just science. Well, we're talking about identity here. We're talking about schizophrenia.
And your prediction came true on your earlier podcast today, the Truth Central, a very boring vice presidential pick for Kamala Harris.
Who do we have?
Walls.
Oh, come on.
You can do better than that.
Come on. I mean, are you kidding me?
All right.
The reaction's priceless.
Karen, I'm glad I have you on today because yesterday Dr. Corsi was on with us, gave us breaking news about this study that's going on, and of course he is. He'll talk more about gods5stones.com, but he's been on here talking about an algorithm that was found by Andrew Paquette in the New York State voter rolls. Now we're understanding, as far as yesterday is concerned, that Ohio is may have a similar situation. Jerry, Karen, let's talk about this.
Well, what they've done is the Democrats have decided that they're going to go into the state boards of election and they're going to take the voter registration databases and they've modified them with a mathematical formula, which is an algorithm. It's like putting a code into the formula, like a secret code. This is secret squirrel stuff they do. So they can create false voting records, either as clones, somebody else's record duplicated, or as just a ghost record. They make it up. But because they've changed the sequence of the state board of election voter ID number not to bear resemblance or relationship to when you've registered, they can insert these records into the file and they look like they're real. And then in this cryptography scheme, what they do is it's like stacking a deck. You think you're at a casino playing blackjack in a fair casino, but yet the 5-card shoe they're being dealt is marked cards, and they're dealing you the cards they want to deal you. And so you lose. And what it permits them to do, it seems like, and we're now calling for investigations and that they can model an election before it even starts and say, here's how many we need to vote of these clones or false votes, and they can request them for absentee ballots. They can get the absentee ballots. They can actually print the absentee ballot with that voter's number on it. It looks real, and so therefore it's certifiable. That's what bothered me in 2020. I couldn't figure out, all these, obvious aberrations, obvious things that were wrong with the mail-in votes, but they certified the elections. Well, challenging a certified election is very tough because now you're challenging what's supposedly a legitimate election. And that makes you an insurrectionist, according to these people. Of course, these are the people who don't know what a woman is, but that's another issue altogether.
Right.
It's on the passport.
Yeah. Do they know what a turtle is?
Yeah. Well, and then you figure out, do they know what robots are? Because I've been reading quite a bit about this AI technology and what's next in this election year and how that's going to be implemented. And you're sitting here talking about algorithms, and I'm thinking to myself, as you're saying that, aren't algorithms at some point going to be outdated because they're just going to rely on these AI chatbots to tell them what to do?
Well, the next president, Obama's next president is, Weekend with Bernie's dead. They just revive him through AI. You don't need to have him stumbling around. Just make him a hologram.
Yeah.
Then Obama can mouth it. It can sound like Biden, and he'll be happy. Now
and he could read the teleprompter. That's a good idea.
Look, what this means is that if the state board of election voter registration files are corrupted with crypto schemes, codes, well, I'm now going to, we created the God's 5 Stones. We're raising money. I'm going to Ohio. I'm going to spend time in Ohio now on this. And then I think my mission between now and the election is to expose this, because it unifies a lot of what we know about the abnormalities people see. In other words, too many people voted in this precinct. There's more people voted in this precinct than were registered. Well, you can do that with an algorithm because you voted the fake votes. Or this district never votes this high for Biden. Well, it did. Well, no, it didn't. The algorithm voted it that high. And since we're not saying that this is the Kraken or that we can, what we're saying is this is inherently wrong to put algorithms inside a state database. And so therefore, we want an investigation of it. And we found it 14 states. I'm getting qualified coders, code writers, cryptographers on their stationery being validated codes. Politicians don't have to on my authority, or there be professionals who do this for a living have been altered. So I'm a big deal with it in the election and awareness on this issue. So we're doing a lot of time. We're trying to raise money. We're going to have, I'll be in Ohio. I'll probably starting next Monday, go to Ohio for a couple of weeks to get this organized. And we'll organize with the other states to get everybody involved so we can have kind of unification of the state. Because this relates the data that people had. What we're finding is that the real voter fraud occurs by a small group of operatives into the state election board, where they operate from the inside. And all the other things we're seeing, machines, the totals changing, all of these things are artifacts of the way they're dialing the election at headquarters. So we're going to learn a lot more about this in the next little bit of time. And God's 5 Stones is where we're going to be putting the information. So people who want to follow it, we're going to change this over the next couple of weeks. So you can add information, you can contribute information, you can donate. Donations are going to be extremely important. $5, $10, whatever people can donate are going to be extremely important in making this work. And I think this could become a national campaign. We're headed into, I've created the Anti-Globalist Alliance and have a book coming out with Bannon. It'll be out on the 13th. I got my first copy of it, the Anti-Globalist Manifesto, which is ending the war on humanity. And we're creating this organization in the United States and in Europe. And so therefore, this is going to be a major, major effort. We're not letting them get away with this. This time around, we're going serious, we're going operational, and we're going to get them.
We're going to be the meddling kids. That's right.
Yeah, Dr. Corsi, as you're talking, I'm just kind of looking at a couple things up for myself. And I love this analogy about the God's 5 Stones. And I was looking up and reminding myself, about David and exactly where that came from. I love that that's also on your website. So if people want to go and look, you've got quite a bit of research where the name came from. And I think it's a beautiful thing to bring spirituality back into the equation here. But, I'm looking at temporary jobs for election workers and just what's available in my area, just to give you an idea right now. And it doesn't take a lot of fact finding or digging to find temp jobs that basically anybody can apply for through a temporary agency to go and work in some capacity for either one of these PACs. It could be Act Blue, it could be somebody else. And Indeed.com right now for Miami-Dade County has 205 election worker jobs as of today. Does that concern you that they go out there and they just hire these people with virtually no background checks whatsoever or minimal background checks, and they're bringing these people in and these people will just do anything for money? I had confronted a guy one time that was busted in down here that was doing some work for one of these PACs, taking signatures down in Del Rey from people. And it was absolutely incredible. And he said, I'm just doing this because I'm getting $30 an hour. Leave me alone. Is that where we're headed? Are they going to play that game again?
Well, it certainly concerns me because, again, these people aren't qualified. They're doing what they're told.
Right.
And, they'll do. And the people applying for these jobs are going to be people who most likely are going to be leftists. They're not, permanently employed, probably.
Right.
That's true.
So therefore,
yes.
They know what they're doing. And that's part of the problem is that the left is organized. They've got money. They all have consistent plans that they implement. Our side rarely works together.
Well, there's an issue because our side definitely allows for a larger group of opinions and a larger group of people. We do work, and that's the funny thing. We work. Karen,
I can't believe what I'm reading. I'm going in here to Indeed. I just went down a rabbit hole, guys, because I like to do that.
Karen, I want to
we're
ask.
talking about a voter customer service job for $60,000 a year in California.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: they pay for activists. Activists get paid on the left. It's on the right. It's just something we do in our spare time. That's unfortunate for a lot of people. But and keep in mind, you have people paid to show up at rallies now. You have people paid to protest around the country now.
Well, didn't Kamala just pay for a bunch of Christians to come in and be your ally?
That's her constituency anyway, isn't it?
Well, I loved when they had during the pandemic and they had cars. People were like a drive-in movie. They had 12 cars there, and that was the rally. Then they had 81 million votes. Sure, they did. Come on.
Oh, wow. I'm looking at this one. This is a good one. Okay, they're hiring for multiple candidates in Arizona, a company called Worker Power. Feel free to call them, guys. It's right here on Indeed.com. Phoenix, Arizona. They're paying $23 an hour. It's a full-time job, 40 hours a week, easy to apply for, okay? Community canvasser is the position. It's a temporary position, and you must be committed to advancing immigrants' rights and workers' rights and be on time and reliable.
Well, I'm actually interested in advancing legal immigrants' rights. I am happy with that. I am happy people advancing rights for people who work for a living. The left, on the other hand, is not. They've become the party of the non-workers. They've become the party of the non-legal immigrants, and they become the party of the extremely rich.
If we can get to show that the state voter registration rolls at the Board of Election level are not legitimate, we're going to make a major impact on this election. And we can possibly get court action, or we can certainly get elected officials and saying that this is not right. But raising the consciousness on this issue, getting this across, and Paquette's paper is brilliant. He did it. It's like breaking the Enigma code to have figured out this code. And he's got it figured out in a way that is 100% there. It was almost an inspiration that he figured out exactly how the ciphers they used, etc. But we can show in the various states, even if we can't figure out the exact formulas, we can show the scatter plots. So, one example quickly in Medina County, which is outside Toledo in Ohio, very small county, very Republican. They don't bother altering it. So you come in, you register, you get registered, you first register, you're number one. It's a straight line. But then you look over by Youngstown, which is heavily Democratic, and all the scatter plots put all the voters in one quadrant. Well, that has to be an algorithm. That's mathematically altered. And that's done, and so therefore we're going to go after this stuff. And we're going to make a big deal of this. And so we're going to make the American public aware of the amount of alterations and manipulations that go on with, if our voter registration files are this corrupted, then some small group has come in with, national security agency type skills in cryptography and put in a scheme where I think they facilitate mail-in ballot cheating. And we're going to find out if that's the case. We don't know it yet for sure. We don't know if it's been used, but we know it's there. And we're going to find out why it's there. And it's inherently suspicious that it's there. It's prima facie wrong to alter the voter database. And so that alone is a starting point.
Right. And it's gods5stones.com. You're taking donations as well. And it's a very important thing you're doing here, Dr. Corsi. And another thing that's causing problems in the business world is uncertainty. We talked about this whole thing with the potential of a Kamala Harris presidency, or what people will do if and when Trump gets elected. There's a lot of uncertainty out there. And that's why we have Paul Stone here. He's, of course, from Colonial Metals Group. And Paul, the uncertainty is killing the investors right now. We're watching we're watching all the indexes here going down, but the S&P is always very telling when it comes to that. You have over the past 5 days, we had the crash, but over the past 5 days the S&P was already going down before the crash. You're looking at down almost 5.5% over, and again, the last 5 days. So let's talk about what you're seeing here.
Sure, great. The uncertainty in our political system, in our legal system, from the centralized government system out of Washington, financially speaking, there's a lot of things that we are certain about. We're certain that printing money leads to supporting things that wouldn't ordinarily exist without that printed money. We're looking at, and most wars are wars waged over, resources. They're always limited. Sometimes they're very hard to come by. And when you look at power, it's also limited, and it's also a resource. I feel a little bit, and I love the work that the doctor is doing. I love the work that all folks, even sitting, at a diner in the morning, just complaining about how they feel the election isn't a clean and honest process anymore. But that feels to me like we're begging the devil to dissolve hell. Our complaints go to places where the power is already in place, where they can deny our claims, they can refute or diminish the potency and the truth that we're trying to ask be clarified. What I think about uncertainty is in today's times where things have become so extreme, and this didn't just start, a few years ago, it started a long time ago. But I try to say to each person, find how you can empower yourself. Don't end up swirling in the victimhood of what the swamp in Washington keeps spinning out into our lives every day. And that's one of the reasons you look at precious metals. It answers a problem. It's a solution to a situation that we can't end on our own, and we are way beyond a vote.
And that's fair enough. And again, and we saw gold and silver go way up in the last few months here. There is talk about gold rising hugely, but what we do know is metals, commodities like that, tend to respond positively to a terrible economic environment.
Right, because it's a trapped asset and it's outside the printed money scheme. So I use the housing example all the time. I could even get out my Karl Rove patented whiteboard if you want me to just draw up a couple.
Oh, I like the whiteboard. I'm a whiteboard guy.
All right. It just fell over. So if we just look, and I don't mean to hijack the show here, but if we just look, if this is 1971, I've been practicing drawing more clearly than I used to, right? And this is a 100 penny dollar, right? 1971. And in this area, you had an average price for a house of $17,000. Today, in 2024, that house is $440,000. So if we've only increased the population by 40%, if we rounded this to 20 grand, we should have home prices today at 28K, right? But instead, we took the dollar down, the government did, from 100 cents to 3, which pushed up on this home price from 17K to $440,000.
Wow.
So this is what I call the inflation game. When we think about most things, that's priced off supply and demand, right? So if we have 40% more people in a line for a mortgage, and we didn't build a single home, then it makes sense that this $17,000 house, rounded up to 20K for easy math, would be 40% of 20 grand is 8 grand. So home prices today would be $28,000. And get this too. Back when your house was 17K, your income was $9,000 a year. So a house costs twice your annual salary. Today at $25,000, you're in poverty, which is a 300% increase in how much people are getting paid from 50 years ago. 53 years, August 15th, 1971, Nixon set all of this in motion. This is what people need to understand is uncertain. And when we go back to resources, and I'll shut up with this 100 penny dollar, that's a resource. Today, the buying power of the dollar is 3 cents. So it's almost completely out. If the dollar was being mined out of the ground, that mine, 97% of that mine is now out in the economy. And that's the treachery people have to watch out for. So I will shut up with this. Precious metal isn't in that system. So if things were to come crashing down, your gold and silver is sitting somewhere where the treachery and the ruin and the bankruptcies and the implosion doesn't harm. It actually does historically push the value higher, but you've made sure your money stays yours.
Okay, Karen,
I have so many questions. I have so much to say because you're going on and on. All I can think to myself is like I'm looking back historically and I'm thinking about Nixon and I'm thinking about the time that the government got involved in things like mortgages and the death of the small town savings and loan and all of the problems that caused. That some of us who are old enough here remember, at least as children. I remember my parents talking about this, watching it on the news with my father, hearing about the savings and loan crash, hearing about the circumstances we were in the late 70s, early 80s, Carter administration. I make the comparison all the time. And, everybody's got to diversify. We talk about it all the time. And as somebody who owns a small little bit of precious metals, not too much, yesterday there were some drops, and I want to address that because I noticed that my account is probably maybe a 1%, a little bit more of a 1% difference on the one side of what I have. What is the expectations for those of us that have already diversified, that have a little bit? We're seeing some little dips. What's going to happen? How's this going to shake out?
Well, let's just say all of a sudden the air density was 50% of what it used to be. So we're going to struggle to function, right? Because we're only getting 50% of the oxygen content out of the air into our bodies. We're going to suffer. It's the same thing. If the dollar is eventually worth a penny, a tenth of a penny, there are going to be, mathematically speaking, and I'm not a financial advisor and I'm not giving financial advice. I'm just trying to bring illumination to some things. And at the heart of that thing is government ineptitude is what's causing all these issues. We talk about Kamala, we talk about stolen elections, we talk about assassinations, we talk about deep state. All of that is afforded because of the massive amount of money the government can ingest for itself by printing so much. I mean, just think of a government that needs $7 trillion in 1 year. A trillion seconds is 31,000 years. So in a way, we need 210,000 years of money in 1 year. Am I doing the math right? 21.
About
20.
that, yes.
It's insanity. So when you think about government payroll for the year is $1.4 trillion a year. The payroll, just the payroll. When Reagan was president, it was $75 billion. 40 something years later, it's $1.4 trillion a year. So what I'm trying to say with that drawing and answer your question is, mathematically speaking, if the government doesn't change its trajectory, it doesn't change its method of operating, then it will put the dollar into a grave. There would have to then be currency change. And I don't see how people could expect their financial resources to do well as that implosion happens or that currency change would occur. So I have not been able to find any examples in history from the Romans to today where governments U-turned out of their direction toward holy hell and put things back in a heavenly status. So being that precious metals is hard as hell to find, the earth is covered 70% by an ocean. We're not really going to find it on the ocean floor. So wherever we can dig is all we can get after. And when money gets scared and chases after security, there's not many ounces to be had, and that drives the price of it higher. But to me, the most important thing is we might want to stop looking at our insatiable appetite for everything we own to constantly go higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. Because trees they grow towards heaven, they never reach it though, and eventually they fall over and turn into soil. So things rise and fall. Precious metals ebbs and flows, but the condition we seem to be in is heading off of bust by massive amounts of printed money that started back in 2008. And when that resource is exhausted, your bust will come full-throated through the door.
It has been said that a society lasts 200 years usually around that. Dr. Corsi, I think you know who said that.
About 200 years. Yeah. I mean, look, the Roman Empire lasted a lot longer, but
right. But they didn't print money like we do.
Well, actually, the Roman Empire did go bang.
Yeah. Wait, can I jump in? And again, I didn't want to make this the Paul Stone show, but we're just touching.
Oh, it's all good.
So how did the Roman Empire become rich? They raided and took your stuff and folded it into Rome's finances, right? So then they hit the German snow line. I'm paraphrasing a little. You hit the German snow line, and there's nothing to the north. No one lives there. So by what I've read and studied, 63 years later, after they returned to just, bask in the glory of Rome, 63 years later, a gold Roman coin was 5% gold. They were printing coins with less and less and less and less gold in them, throwing coinage at their bills, but they weren't throwing money at their bills. They were throwing coinage. There was no new money coming into Rome, so they imploded from the inside out. Just like we're doing in many countries before us. Our dollar today worth 3 cents is the same thing as a Roman gold coin worth 5% gold.
Well, think about this. We stopped printing pennies in copper a long time ago. It became zinc because we couldn't afford to do it anymore.
Because the printing money causes inflation, which causes copper to be too expensive to use in a penny.
Exactly.
It's all the government. All of it. All of it. All of it.
As we get intense here, that's how it's going right here on Wake Up Patriots. Hey, we're waking up the Patriots today, right?
You really are. I'll tell you, the amount of energy in this show has been incredible. And, I loved your graph, Paul. It was really good. The X really kind of just spoke to me. And I'm looking as you're saying this, and, the average home sale price in the United States was 1979 was $71,000. But the most compelling thing about this, and this is so indicative of a Democrat administration and what we're dealing with this Biden administration, is in 9 years, it went from 27,000 to 71,000. It only takes a minute. We're on that slippery slope of socialism right now.
Yeah. And what Biden did when it's not Biden, right? He's just some puppet. But what his administration did, the regime that's running him, as soon as he took office, was inject a few more $1 trillion out of thin air into the economy, and it didn't know what to do with it. So when Trump was president and things get shut down, a lot of states are shutting down their economies. From what I've studied and read, we're a $20 trillion economy a year. And $9 trillion went missing, right, from economic production, from people being shelved and companies being mothballed. So printing $9 trillion out of thin air would keep everything put together. And the economy knows how to consume that $9 trillion because it's used to running on 20, and it produces 11 on its own. So the 9 just fills the delta. When the idiots come into Washington, into the White House in 2021, they also want to create some money. And that's what's causing this massive amount of pain, this exclamation point at the end of a lot of stupid government plans and programs over the decades since Nixon. And it's just so irresponsible. It's just so irresponsible to cause this massive pain after what the Trump administration and those who are managing the COVID fallout mostly got us through okay. I'm still not for the government solving its problems by printed money, But when you're just comparing two presidencies here, and the one that might end up taking the White House back, right, in November, there's a stark difference between the mentality of what is best for the country. And obviously the Democrats thinks what's best for them, and the other party is thinking about what's best for the people.
Basically, if you can't make money, either marry it or print it. That's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Tony, welcome
back. In this case, yeah, I'm back. So, hey, good to see everybody. Hey, Paul, good morning. Good to be back. I actually am on standby because of breaking news. You might have heard Kamala Harris picked Mike Waltz to be her partner. So
a collective yawn.
Yeah. Well, no, I think this is important, what Paul was just saying, because this whole effort now, she has doubled down. She's picked a fellow traveler, and I'm not joking about that. This guy is a progressive. He is all in on woke issues. And Paul, I want to hit this really hard right now, because part of the issue that actually deflates the value of a dollar and expands the power of the state is this whole Inflation Reduction Act, which is, as Jerry Corsi knows, Dr. Corsi knows, is a rebranding of the Green New Deal.
Right.
Now, the Green New Deal is dangerous for two reasons. First, it justifies the government making huge investments in organizations and technology that they want to promote, but they don't have the money, so they got to print it. So therefore, they're printing all these billions of dollars, flooding it into the market and devaluing the dollar. Secondly, there's no climate crisis. I'm speaking to you as a professional. I'm not making any jokes about this, because this is something too serious to joke about. As a climate expert, I have a degree in environmental studies. There is no climate crisis. This is all being used for purposes of gaining control of means of energy production and means of energy distribution. Again, communism. The bottom line is, when the government is allowed to do that, the government then can control who prospers and who fails regarding business. So when you have the government making those winners and losers choices, you deflate the economy. So it's a twofer. You deflate the value of the money and lower the value of individual savings, and you deflate the economy and what it can do to grow. You basically strangle any hope of expanding the market. So, Paul, this is why what you're talking about is so important. You give people essentially a resource that will weather the storms no matter what happens. Is that a good way of assessing it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've tried, many analogies, and the one I'm kind of stuck on recently is that gold and silver is like a bridge. You're headed to a very deep chasm. I don't know exactly how close we are to the cliff's edge, but eventually, historically and mathematically speaking, there is a cliff edge. It usually takes people by surprise, even though there were tons and tons of headlines telling you you're nearby. So if you want to ride financially down to the bottom and climb your way back up 10 years later, great. If you want to avoid that, you need a bridge. Gold and silver gets you over that chasm.
Yeah. So it's going to be important that we do that. So back on the issues relating to the day, and I think it's important for us to all address a little bit. Now that Kamala Harris has picked her running mate, Tim Walz. Tim is not. Be sure you have to be careful now, because my friend Mike Waltz is a congressman, and they spell it the same way. So Tim Walz is no Mike Walsh, or vice versa, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, we do understand now that there's a concerted effort to move this ticket far left. That is to say, they're not even going to hide this whole idea. And Paul, I asked Karen earlier, and Jerry, you weren't on, but you're on now. Do you believe, Paul, that Kamala Harris is going to back away from what she said regarding banning fracking, opening prisons, going about trying to include woke issues in everything, fixing the border now that Joe Biden said he wants to fix it, working to actually establish a process for handling the Middle East? Do you believe anything that she's going to do, that she says she's going to do, going back on everything she's already done?
Absolutely not. And this is the perfect thing for people to recognize, right? The source of everything matters. It matters it's the whole ball game. What is the source? Stop looking around people treating symptoms. What's the source of this hell we're facing in politically and lack of ethics and principles, and no one wants to take responsibility out of Washington anymore, right? It's the fact that people have seized upon that we are making ourselves extinct. That people absolutely believe the opposite of what you're saying, Tony. They believe that climate change is caused by us eating red meat and caused by us riding around in our pickup trucks, right? And doing whatever we want with our lawnmowers and letting trucks idle while they're waiting to do a delivery. So they believe, they're hell-bent on this consideration that we are making ourselves extinct. So if that's in you and you go into political motivated effort and work, then you're going to make this policy that you have to slip in amongst the people without showing them what you're really doing. You have to lie. You have to obfuscate what you're actually after, your agenda. You have to hide that. You have to just say, Slick Willie, remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Slick Willie really showed that you can, if you tell the story big enough, everyone will believe you. Obama perfected it, and Kamala's just going with that same playbook. If you lie in a huge way, people sound like idiots challenging that. And it almost seems like they've got this recipe down. The crazier that they lie, that they say things like they totally do a 180 on their policy that they've said over the years, and the Trump folks attack that, they almost look childish to attack what the Kamala team is saying, which helps Kamala look more credible and Trump look more unstable.
Right. So I want to hit that real quick and just to help the audience understand. And what Paul said is completely correct. They politicize science. Science is not science to them. It's a tool of manipulation. And let me just go through some of the facts here for purposes of helping educate. And Jerry will back me up on this. When we drive our cars, we produce two things: CO2, which is plant food, and water. Those are not pollutants. Plant food is necessary. And at this point in time, the moment we're talking, there are 3.04 trillion trees, trillion with a T. And each tree consumes on average 48 pounds of CO2, which is why what they're saying, if you actually run the scientific numbers, there's not an issue. As a matter of fact, if you want more green, have more CO2. If you diminish CO2 below the 0.04% we have now down to 3 or 2, we lose plant life. We to Paul's point, we die. It's like an annihilation of the human race. So don't buy into it. And oh, by the way, just again, scientifically speaking, facts, as Karen says, facts. The CO2 is 0.04% of the atmosphere. It's not even a percentage or a fraction. It's a fraction of a fraction. 0.04%. And oh, by the way, man is responsible for 0.0016. So that again, that's 0.0016. It's a smaller percentage than the smaller percentage. So everything they're telling you right now is all about trying to convince you that you're the problem, that you can't eat red meat, you can't drive the car you want. It's all meant to manipulate you. So this is where getting gold, getting silver maximizes your freedom. You can step away from a lot of the chaos that you see right now by being factual, being secure, and doing the right thing for your family. So, Jerry, anything you want to see on the climate stuff I just outlined there?
You're exactly right, but I'm still on this guy. Have you seen this guy waltz? I mean, we got aging white guy, balding aging white guy, who is presiding. Look at this guy. This guy is the worst vice presidential candidate since George Wallace picked Curtis LeMay.
Well, he's going to be the president. Look, here's what's going to happen. The Democrats are going to find a way to.
This guy looks like he wants to bomb something. I mean,
that's true.
This is your future president because the Democrats are going to find a way to 25th Amendment.
This guy, you're going to sell this guy to the American public? I mean, give me a
see him
break.
In a debate with Vance.
I mean, Eagleton was a better candidate than this. He had shock therapy.
Well, I think maybe Jerry, maybe you could recommend shock therapy for Waltz. I think it might help him. He's pretty pasty, Just saying. I mean, do you think that maybe he's a Viking? You think they're going to go with the Viking line and say, "Oh, he's not really pasty. He's a Viking."
I love the Goldwater glasses, though. The black glasses are really cute.
You should have picked Fetterman.
Much better. God, I mean, they picked an old white guy balding to balance Kamala.
Well,
now,
that's what they had.
Is that?
That is the balance to Kamala. Kamala Harris is a giggling, cackling fool. At least the communists know they have somebody who's a seasoned guy who can push their agenda.
This guy burned down Minnesota. He burned down Minneapolis.
That's what they want.
Floyd.
Yes, that's what they want. That's their constituency.
By the way, I think they're going for, this guy's a retired National Guard E8. And there's some history there that I don't think they want coming out, but we'll see. I don't know how much that's going to come out. I mean, I think everybody's already on the Twitter sphere going out and putting out what they have on this guy. So it's going to be very interesting. So anyway, we got to wrap it up. It's been an hour. And so Patriots all, thank you for being here. We've got another day, right, Chris? We're back tomorrow.
We'll be back tomorrow, and we have some good stuff happening as well.
Great.
I'm coming back.
Yeah. Karen's gonna be here, and we'll do another call. Jesus calling, and
Sure.
by the way, we'll make sure that Jesus doesn't call us collect this time, right, Karen? We'll make sure that we don't get those charges.
Anyway,
that's
we
right.
can
We
talk
don't
to
mind.
him. We'll be okay.
Well, be sure to plug in Waltz. I'm sure he's got some good things to say.
Well,
we're going to have stuff tomorrow.
We'll do the last waltz. We'll do that over the. We'll do the last waltz over the.
I think he's already done the last waltz.
Yeah. So maybe that reminds me, we should do some clips from the last waltz, Chris, from that great movie.
Why not? That'll be great. We'll do that.
Yeah. So Paul, thank you for being here and for everything you do to help protect the economic security and future of the friends and families, the patriots that are here. And Paul, I guess we'll see you again. We're going to regularize this to this time next week? Is that what we're doing now?
Yes, Paul's Tuesdays every week.
Great. It's good to get into our rhythm, so it's good. So anyway, so you'll excuse my suit and tie since I was supposed to be on Newsmax and I got dumped because of breaking news. The waltz. I'm already upset because I got dumped because of waltz. What? Imagine the nerve of that guy.
Hey, could have you talk about waltz? That would have been fine.
All right, Patriots, it's great seeing you all, and we'll see you again tomorrow morning. And thank you, Dr. Corsi. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Chris. We'll see everybody tomorrow morning.